silver just crashed, and the media is calling it a dip, a correction, a buying opportunity. But what if they're wrong? What if what just happened to silver is not a dip at all? What if it's the beginning of something much, much bigger? And more importantly, what if the people who are supposed to be explaining this to you are deliberately leaving out the part that actually matters? If you are interested in money, finance, or changing your financial future, like this video and subscribe right now, because what you are about to learn can change the way you see money forever. Here's what nobody is telling you. Silver didn't just crash randomly. It didn't trip and fall. Something pushed it. And the forces behind that push are the same forces that have quietly been reshaping the global economy for the past 2 years. And most ordinary people have no idea they even exist. By the end of this video, you will. And once you understand what's really happening, you won't be able to look at your savings, your salary, or your financial future the same way again. But before we get into what's really going on, I need you to understand something about how silver actually works in the real world. Because most people think of silver as jewelry, maybe some coins their grandfather kept in a drawer. That's it. And that misunderstanding, that completely innocent, completely common misunderstanding, is costing regular people enormous amounts of money right now, and they don't even know it. Silver is not just a shiny metal. It is one of the most industrially critical materials on the planet. It's in your smartphone. It's in solar panels. It's in electric vehicles. It's in military equipment, medical devices, semiconductors, and satellites. In fact, silver has more industrial uses than almost any other metal on Earth. Which means when global demand for technology shifts, silver feels it immediately. And right now, something very significant just shifted. I'll get to exactly what shifted in a moment. But first, let me show you something that will make the crash make a lot more sense. Picture a guy named Tariq. He's 34 years old, works a decent job in logistics, makes a reasonable salary. A few years ago, Tariq watched silver go from around $15 an ounce to nearly $30. He watched it happen. He read about it. He thought about buying in. But he waited, like most people wait, because the price seemed high and he thought it might come down. Then it came down a little. Then it went back up. Then it crashed. And now Tariq is sitting there watching the price fall, and he still doesn't know what to do because nobody ever explained to him what actually drives silver prices in the first place. Tariq isn't dumb. Tariq just never got the real education. And the version of Tariq exists in millions of households right now, watching prices move, feeling confused, feeling slightly anxious, and making no decision at all, which, as we'll see, is itself a decision with very real consequences. So let's fix that. Let's give you what Tariq never got. Because the moment you understand the true anatomy of a silver crash, you stop being confused and you start seeing opportunity, or danger, with complete clarity. Silver prices are driven by 3 main forces. The first is industrial demand, how much silver manufacturers, tech companies, and energy producers actually need. The second is investment demand, how much ordinary people and institutions are buying silver as a store of value, a hedge against inflation, a safe haven. And the third, and this is the one almost nobody talks about, is paper silver. The enormous, almost incomprehensibly large market of silver contracts, silver futures, silver ETFs, and financial instruments that are technically linked to silver, but don't involve anyone actually holding any physical silver at all. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. The paper silver market, this world of contracts and digital positions, is estimated to be roughly 100 to 200 times the size of the physical silver market. Let me say that again so it actually lands. For every single ounce of real physical silver that exists in the world, there are somewhere between 100 and 200 paper claims on that same ounce. Meaning the price you see on your screen right now, the price that determines whether people feel wealthy or scared, is not primarily set by people who own silver. It's set by people who own paper that represents silver they will never actually touch. Most people never realize this part. And once you do, everything changes. Because what this means is that silver prices can, and do, get pushed around by large financial institutions making enormous bets in the futures market. When a massive bank or hedge fund decides to sell $1 billion worth of silver futures in a single afternoon, the price drops. Not because silver suddenly became less useful, not because there's suddenly more of it in the ground, but because a financial institution made a move on a screen somewhere and the algorithm-driven market responded. And when the price drops, regular people like Tariq, see the number falling and panic. Or they see it falling and assume it means silver is worthless. And both reactions are exactly what the institutions need to complete their play. This is where everything changes. Because the current crash in silver didn't come out of nowhere. It came on the back of something very specific. And that something is China. And what China just did to silver is one of the most significant and least reported financial stories of the past 12 months. China is the world's largest producer of silver, not just a big producer, the largest. And in early 2025, China began restricting its silver exports. Officially, the stated reasons were vague: domestic industrial needs, strategic resource management. But what China was actually doing was something far more calculated, and the effects are only now beginning to ripple outward in ways that are going to affect silver prices and your financial decisions for years. Here's the thing about export restrictions that most people miss. When the world's largest supplier of something suddenly reduces how much of that thing it sells to the rest of the world, there are two immediate effects. The first is a short-term supply crunch. The rest of the world has less of it, so buyers scramble and price goes up. That's what we saw in late 2024 and early 2025 when silver touched prices that hadn't been seen in years. But then comes the second effect, and this is the one that caused the crash. When prices spike sharply due to supply fear, the big financial players, the banks, the hedge funds, the institutions with access to the paper silver market, move in and take profits, massively. They offload enormous paper positions at the high. And when they do that, the price drops just as fast as it rose. Not because the supply problem went away, not because industrial demand disappeared, but because the financial layer of the silver market, that synthetic paper-based casino sitting on top of the real market, corrected. And everyone watching a chart just saw the number fall and started panicking. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The physical silver shortage that triggered the initial spike, it didn't go away. It's still there. China hasn't reversed its export restrictions. In fact, if anything, those restrictions have intensified, because silver is now a critical component in the exact technologies, solar panels, EVs, advanced electronics, that China is trying to dominate globally. They don't want to sell their silver to the rest of the world anymore. They want to use it themselves to build the future, which means the rest of the world, Europe, America, India, Southeast Asia, is now competing for a smaller pool of available silver than existed 2 years ago. And the crash you just saw? That was the paper market correcting. The physical reality hasn't corrected at all. Now I want to be very careful here, because I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not telling you to go buy silver tomorrow morning. What I am telling you is that when you understand the difference between a paper market correction and a fundamental supply shift, you stop making emotional decisions driven by a falling chart. You start asking different questions, better questions. Questions like, what is the long-term supply picture? What are the industrial demand forecasts? What are the smartest institutional investors actually doing with physical silver right now? Not in their public statements, but in their actual vault holdings. And when you start asking those questions, you quickly run into something else nobody is talking about. Central banks. Not just any central banks, the world's largest ones. For the past 3 years, central banks globally have been buying physical gold at a pace not seen since the 1960s. Record purchases, year after year. And while everyone has been focused on gold, something quieter has been happening in the silver world. Institutional buyers, sovereign wealth funds, large family offices, certain hedge funds have been quietly building up physical silver stockpiles. Not paper positions, not futures contracts. Physical metal sitting in vaults. I'll explain exactly why they're doing this in a moment. But first, let me bring you back to Tariq, because his story has a second chapter. About 18 months after his first encounter with the silver market, Tariq had done his research. Not surface-level research, not just watching price charts and reading Reddit threads, but real, deep research into the industrial supply chain. He learned about the China export restrictions before most mainstream outlets even covered it. He learned about the paper-silver market and understood why chart movements didn't always reflect physical reality. He understood that the solar industry alone was projected to consume more silver in the next decade than all the silver mines in the world could physically produce. And armed with that understanding, when the crash came, when the price fell hard and fast, and headlines screamed that silver was collapsing, Tariq didn't panic. He didn't buy either because he was patient and strategic, but he understood what he was looking at. And understanding what you're looking at is the single most valuable financial skill you can develop. The people who got hurt in the silver crash are the people who bought at the top without understanding why the price had risen, and then sold at the bottom without understanding why the price had fallen. They bought fear of missing out and sold fear of losing everything. Both decisions were made emotionally. Both were made without understanding the underlying reality. And both, unfortunately, locked in real financial losses for real families. But here's what nobody talks about. The same psychological mechanism that drives people to buy high and sell low in silver, that same fear and greed cycle, is operating in every single financial market simultaneously. In stocks, in real estate, in currency, in crypto, in commodities. The names change, the specific triggers change, but the emotional arc, excitement, then greed, then fear, then panic, then regret, is identical every single time. Because the market is not just a collection of prices. It's a collection of human emotions, institutionally amplified and algorithmically accelerated. And if you don't understand your own emotional responses to financial information, you will always be the last to buy and the first to sell. Always. This is a deeper lesson than silver. This is a lesson about how ordinary people lose wealth quietly, slowly, and completely without realizing it's happening. Think about the average family, working hard, saving what they can, maybe putting some money in a bank account where it earns almost nothing, maybe trying to invest a little, but not really knowing how. They see silver going up and feel a little twinge. Maybe I should buy some. They see silver crash and feel relief that they didn't, or panic because they did. They go back to their salary, their savings account, their small, stable, predictable financial life that is, in reality, being quietly eroded every single year by inflation, currency debasement, and rising costs that their savings account cannot keep pace with. And here's the brutal reality that almost no one in mainstream media will say out loud. Keeping your savings in cash, in a bank account, in a currency that is being printed at record levels by governments around the world is not a safe strategy. It feels safe. The number on your screen doesn't go down. You don't experience the emotional pain of watching a chart crash. But the purchasing power of that money, what it can actually buy you, is being quietly destroyed every single year. And unlike a silver crash, which is visible, dramatic, and gets covered by headlines, currency debasement is invisible, gradual, and completely unreported, which is exactly why it's so dangerous. The people who put their savings in silver, or gold, or real assets, or income-generating investments are not making crazy bets. In many cases, they are simply trying to preserve what they already earned. They are trying to stop their financial future from being quietly stolen from them through a process that is so slow and so invisible that most people never even notice it happening until they retire and suddenly realize their savings don't buy what they thought they would. Now, here's the part where I want to be honest with you about something. Silver, specifically, is a complicated asset. It is more volatile than gold. It is more tied to industrial cycles. It can crash hard and stay low for a long time. It has crashed before and taken years to recover. The people who understand silver deeply know this. They don't treat it as a get-rich-quick play. They treat it as one part of a broader strategy, a strategy that includes understanding why prices move, when to enter, how much to hold, and when to be patient. But the bigger lesson, the one that goes far beyond silver, is about the importance of financial education in a world that is actively working against your financial interests. I want to be very direct about this. The financial system you were born into was not designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you a productive participant in an economy that extracts value from your labor and your savings. Your school probably never taught you about inflation, about compound interest working for you, about asset classes, about the difference between income and wealth. Your bank benefits when you keep your money in a low-interest account. Your government benefits when you focus on spending rather than accumulating real assets. The financial media benefits when you react emotionally to headlines and make impulsive decisions. None of these systems are your friend in the truest financial sense. And that doesn't mean you should be paranoid or conspiracy-minded about any of this. It just means you need to take your own financial education seriously, because nobody else is going to do it for you, and nobody talks about this part. Because taking your financial education seriously means confronting uncomfortable things. It means admitting that some of the financial habits you grew up with, save in cash, work for a salary, trust the experts, may not be enough to actually secure your future. It means sitting with the discomfort of realizing you've been operating without a real map. And it means doing the hard work of building a financial understanding that is genuinely yours, not borrowed from headlines, not copied from someone else's Reddit thread, but built through real study, real patience, and real thinking. That's what Tariq did. Not overnight, over years. He made mistakes, real ones that cost him money. But each mistake taught him something that a headline never could. And the most valuable thing he learned wasn't a specific tip about silver or gold or any asset in particular. It was something simpler and more fundamental. He learned to separate the signal from the noise, to look past the dramatic headline to the underlying reality, to ask not, is the price going up or down today? But what is the actual long-term picture, and does this align with my strategy? That capacity, that clarity, is the real competitive advantage in finance. And it is available to anyone willing to develop it. But here is what most people miss when they learn about silver or any other investment. There's a difference between understanding something intellectually and actually having the emotional discipline to act on that understanding when the moment arrives. Everyone nods when you explain the paper silver market. Everyone agrees that buying high and selling low is a mistake. But when the price is actually crashing, when the headlines are scary, when your neighbor is telling you to sell, that's when intellectual understanding has to convert into emotional strength. And that conversion doesn't happen automatically. It requires practice. It requires experience. It requires, above all else, a prior commitment to a clear strategy that you believe in deeply enough to hold through the noise. This is why the wealthiest individuals in history, not the lucky ones who got rich overnight, but the ones who built and kept wealth across decades, almost universally share one trait. They made decisions based on principles, not on emotions. They had a plan, and they stuck to it even when it was terrifying. Warren Buffett famously said to be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. It sounds simple. It sounds obvious. But think about how completely it contradicts every natural human instinct. When everyone around you is panicking and selling, every piece of your biology is screaming at you to join them. When everyone is celebrating and buying, every social instinct you have is pulling you toward the party. Going against those forces requires something more than a clever quote. It requires a foundation, a real understanding of what you own, why you own it, and what it's actually worth independent of what the market says on any given day. And this is where we circle back to where we started. Silver crashed. The media is telling you one story, a story about falling prices, market corrections, investor sentiment, but underneath that story is a different reality, a world in which the largest silver-producing nation on Earth has begun restricting its exports for strategic reasons, in which industrial demand for silver is projected to grow faster than supply for the foreseeable future, in which the financial layer sitting on top of the physical silver market creates violent emotional price swings that have nothing to do with the underlying fundamentals of the metal itself, and in which most ordinary people who work hard, who want to protect their financial future, who are genuinely trying to make smart decisions, are making those decisions without any of this context. That gap between the story being told and the reality underneath it is where financial losses live. And it's also where financial opportunities exist for the people who do the work to see clearly. Now let me ask you something personal. Right now, today, do you have a clear, honest picture of where your financial future is headed? Not your income. Your income is what you earn. Your financial future is what you keep. It's what you build. It's the gap between what comes in and what comes out, multiplied over time by either the power of intelligent compounding or the quiet erosion of inflation and missed opportunity. Do you know what your savings are actually doing for you right now? Do you know how much of your purchasing power has quietly evaporated in the last 3 years? Do you have a real plan, not just a vague intention, for how you're going to build and protect wealth over the next decade? If the honest answer is no, if there's even a small uncomfortable feeling in your chest right now as you sit with those questions, then that discomfort is the most important thing you felt today. Not because you should feel ashamed, not because you've made terrible decisions, but because that discomfort is the signal. It's the part of you that knows there's a gap between where you are and where you need to be. And every single person who has ever changed their financial reality started with that exact feeling. The question is never whether you have the gap. Everyone has the gap at some point. The question is what you do with the signal. Do you nod, feel slightly uncomfortable, and then go back to whatever you were doing before? Or do you let it actually mean something? Do you use it as the moment you decided, not tomorrow, not when the time is right, but right now, to take your financial education more seriously than you ever have before? Because here's the final truth, and I want you to feel this one deeply. The silver crash is going to end. The market is going to recover. Not necessarily tomorrow, not in a straight line, but over time, the forces of real industrial demand and real supply constraints will reassert themselves over the paper market's noise. Some people are going to look back at this moment and see it as the point where everything started to shift in their favor, not because they got lucky, but because they understood what they were looking at. And some people are going to look back at this same moment and still be confused, still be reacting emotionally, still be making financial decisions based on fear and headlines and the advice of people who don't have their interests at heart. The difference between those two groups of people is not intelligence. It's not wealth. It's not luck. It's one thing. They decided to learn. They decided to understand. They decided, at some specific moment in time, that their financial education was worth taking seriously. And then they actually did it. That moment can be right now. For you. Today. The silver crash is not the story. You are the story. Your financial future, your choices, your capacity to see clearly in a world full of noise. That is what actually matters. The metal will do what it does. The market will move however it moves. But what you bring to that reality, and the clarity, the discipline, the education, that's the only variable you actually control. And it's the one that matters most. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. More powerful financial truths are coming next.